Well, I'm here with a type of video I haven't filmed in a very long time, and that is a book haul. I just thought that I would show you some of the books I have acquired within the last few months or so. Some of them I got from Book Outlet, but most of them are from either my friend's bookstore or from used bookstores. So we're going to start with the new books that I got from my friend's bookstore. The first one here is Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree, which is the prequel to Legends and Lattes. I absolutely adored Legends and Lattes, and I'm really excited to read this one. I think this one basically is the story of what makes Viv, the orc, want to open her own coffee shop. It's kind of like all the stuff that happens that spark that interest for her, I believe. I also got two books that I've never heard of, which I'm really excited about. I love getting books that I've never heard of that sound wonderful and have beautiful covers also. So the first one is The City of Stardust by Georgia Summers. Can we just sit here and admire this for a second? It's so pretty. I don't know what this is about. I'm not even sure I knew what it was about when I bought it. I read the synopsis and the first page. I don't know. And you know what? I'm not going to explain what all these books are about because we don't have time to sit here for 40 minutes while I explain the synopsis of every single book in these piles. The next one is Curious Tides by Pascal Lascelles. Don't know what this one's about either, but it's got moon magic in it, I think. And gorgeous. And also the first page and the synopsis intrigued me as well. I still couldn't tell you what it's about, And then I got Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett, which is, I'm pretty sure, a fairly cozy story about someone who is writing the first Encyclopedia of Fairies, and there's this rival guy who I'm sure she falls in love with, so sounds great. I've got a few books from Book Outlet. The first one is Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. I read Every Summer After a few years ago, and I really enjoyed it. It felt very nostalgic to me and made me feel like I was at my cottage. Also, the Every Summer After takes place in Barry's Bay, and I used to drive through Barry's Bay all the time, going to my grandma's and going to my aunt's cottage, so I really loved that about it. I don't know what this one's about. I think it's told in the same style with alternating now and then chapters. I'm pretty sure, I want to say that's how all her books are written, but I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. I also got Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. I've previously read a couple books by this author duo and really enjoyed them. I also heard from a lot of people that this book and Every Summer After are basically the same. So I'm really interested to read this one and see how they compare, and also why people are kind of complaining about how the stories are basically the same, because that's a thing that happens often. I don't think Carly Fortune was copying this book. They just both had similar ideas, and I'm sure they were executed differently. But we'll see. And then I got The City in the Middle of the Night by Charlie Jane Anders. I couldn't tell you what this one is about either. Wait, I told you I wasn't going to tell you what they were about anyway. So yes, I know what this is about. I bought a book because I knew what it was about and knew I wanted to read it. And I am just choosing not to tell you what it's about. Okay, then I've got a whole bunch of used bookstore finds. So the first one here is The Force of Hands and Teeth by Carrie Ryan. This is one of the first books that I read when I was really getting back into reading. So I've always been a reader. I've always enjoyed reading. But when I was younger, I was a lot more picky. And I didn't, kind of binge books the way that I have been doing over the past, 10 years or so. When I finally found this very strong love for reading and was devouring about a book a week, this was one of the first books when that kind of started happening. And so this is the first book in a trilogy, and I borrowed all three books. And I loved them. I thought they were fantastic. Don't know if I would love them as much now, but that doesn't matter. I loved them when I read them, and that's what counts. I've always been sad that I didn't have a copy of these, especially because they were one of the first books that I really loved when I really started getting into reading. So anyway, yeah, I found a copy of this, so I picked that up. I don't have to go into a big detail, but these stories are about zombies. I also got Bailey School Kids Werewolves Don't Go to Summer Camp by Debbie Dady and Marsha Thornton Jones. I was obsessed with Bailey School Kids when I was younger. Bailey School Kids and Goosebumps. This was the first one that I remember reading, and to my knowledge and in my memory, this is also the first chapter book that I ever read. I could be wrong, because this was in grade 3 that I read this, and I feel like I probably would have read a children's chapter book before grade 3, but this one sticks out in my mind the most. And I have a few copies of Bailey School Kids books. Pretty much anytime I find some that I knew I read when I was younger, I'll buy a copy. And I've been looking for The Werewolves Don't Go to Summer Camp forever. And I found it. So now it's mine. I also got Wither by Lauren DeStefano. This book was super popular on BookTube way back in the day. And I remember seeing this at the bookstore, I think even before I had heard about it on BookTube. And I almost bought it several times, but never did. And my friend randomly has the second book in the series, I think, hasn't read them. And there were 2 copies at the used bookstore. So we decided to each get a copy and read it together. I think it's going to be fun because, I don't know, I feel like it's going to feel nostalgic reading this. I feel like it's going to be like very clearly, when was this even published? Like probably 2010, 2011. So a pretty good guess there. I feel like this is probably pretty cliche YA from around that time. Like I feel like around that time there were a lot of YA books that all had like similar themes, similar writing styles, and I feel like this is gonna like really embody that. But anyway, I think it's gonna be really fun reading this with my friend. I also got Last Things by Jacqueline West. I was intrigued by the cover. Well, first it was the spine. I think it was just the spine that I saw. And then I really liked the cover. It's also very like shiny and metallic-y. What really drew me though was the blurb at the top that says everything I love in a book. Victoria Schwab. I love Victoria Schwab. So I scooped this up immediately. I think it's about someone who has sold their soul to the devil, but then there's also somebody else involved who, I don't know. I also got In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware. Ew, this book is sticky. Ooh. Gross. We'll have to wipe that off. Anyway, this is like a thriller book. And I've read... What else did I read by Ruth Ware? I read The Turn of the Key, and I really enjoyed it. And I thought it was very... I'm going to put this down. I thought it was very... engaging, and it was just very easy to read. Like the writing was very casual, and it just sucked you in really easily. So I figured another book by her would probably be similar. And then I got Among the Betrayed, and Among the Betrayed. This series is by Margaret Peterson Haddix. It is about a world where it is illegal to have more than 2 children, and it follows a third child and what he's dealing with him hiding and a whole bunch of other things. I read the first book, Among the Hidden, in grade 7, and I was obsessed with it. When I read it in grade 7, I think it was just that one book that was out. And then when more books came out, I wasn't aware. I didn't know that there were other books that came out. So I found out many years later in my adult years that there's like 7 books or something in this series. So I buy them anytime I find them at used bookstores. I've read the second one, and I haven't read any of the other ones, but I want to read them all for fun and nostalgic purposes. And I was at this used bookstore, and they had 2 copies of Among the Betrayed, and then they also had Among the Barons that I needed. These were the last 2 that I needed, Among the Barons and Among the Betrayed, but they had these 2 copies that are very slightly different. And so I was trying to decide which one I wanted. And then I made my decision and put one back. But I accidentally put Among the Barons back and bought 2 copies of the same book. I didn't realize until I got home. So now I have 2 copies of this book. Hooray. But luckily my friend found Among the Barons like 2 weeks later and bought it for me. It was like $1 or something. So excellent. Delightful. Now I have the whole series. I also got The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson. Oh, it was in better condition and I've already ruined it accidentally. Fuck. There. This is the 3rd book in the Mistborn trilogy. I think it's actually like more than 3 books, but it's also can only be 3 books if you want. It's one of those, like, series within a series, I think. But anyway, doesn't matter. I've read the first book, and I really enjoyed it. I have the second book, haven't read it yet. Big books are very intimidating to me, and these books are actually bigger than they look. The paper is really thin. But I've read a few really big books recently, so I can probably do it. Go me! And anyway, this was in really good shape, and it's the same cover style as the other 2 books that I have, so they all match, which is my goal in book collecting, is for them to match. So, excellent. And the last one I have here is The Notebook by Nicholas Sparks. I don't want this. When I bought it, for some reason, I read The Notebook. I'm pretty sure I even said The Notebook out loud to my friend that I was with, but in my head, I was thinking A Walk to Remember. I don't know why. I don't want to read The Notebook. I kind of want to read A Walk to Remember. I'm so silly. I don't want this, but I thought I'd show it to you. Those are all the books that I've bought recently. And I just thought it would be fun to show you. I haven't talked about piles of books at once in a really long time, and I wanted to do that. So, I guess that's all. Have a good day. Bye.